The morning sun reflected off the polished supercars lining the showroom floor of Elite Motors in Beverly Hills. Kanye West adjusted his sunglasses as he stepped through the glass doors, the cool air conditioning a welcome relief from the California heat. He had been eyeing their newest limited edition model for weeks, and today was finally the day he would add it to his collection. The showroom buzzed with the quiet energy of wealth, salespeople speaking in hushed, respectful tones to potential buyers who examined the vehicles with practiced indifference. Kanye moved with purpose across the marble floor, his confidence evident in every step. He'd done this dozens of times before at luxury dealerships across the world. A young salesperson glanced up and did a double-take, recognition flashing across his face. He quickly approached with an extended hand. "Mr. West, it's an honor to have you visit us today. I'm Tony, how can I help you?" Kanye shook his hand firmly. "I'm interested in the Phantom Spectre. I understand you have one available." Tony's smile faltered slightly. "The Phantom Spectre is our most exclusive model this year. Only 12 made worldwide. Let me check with my manager about availability." As Tony hurried away, Kanye wandered among the cars, running his fingers lightly over their perfect finishes. He paused at a sleek black sports car, admiring its lines while mentally redesigning certain elements. His creative mind never truly rested, even during something as straightforward as buying a car. Several minutes passed before Tony returned, accompanied by an older man in an impeccably tailored suit. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. West, I'm Richard Harrington, General Manager. It's a pleasure to meet you." His handshake was brief, professional, but cool. "Tony tells me you're interested in our Phantom Spectre." "That's right. I've been following its development for months." "Revolutionary engineering," Richard nodded stiffly. "It certainly is. However, I regret to inform you that all our models have been allocated to pre-selected clients." Kanye frowned. "I called last week. Your staff said there was still one available. I apologize for the miscommunication. Our inventory status must have changed." Something in Richard's tone felt off. Kanye had spent years dealing with people who said one thing while meaning another. He'd developed a sixth sense for it. "Look, price isn't an issue. If someone has placed a deposit, I can top it." Richard's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Mr. West, it's not a matter of price. Our Phantom Spectres go to clients who represent our brand values. We have a strict selection process." The showroom seemed to grow quieter. A couple nearby pretended not to listen while casting sideways glances. "Are you saying I don't represent your brand values?" Kanye's voice remained level, but there was a dangerous edge to it now. Richard cleared his throat. "Your recent public statements have been controversial. Our brand prefers to avoid association with such controversy." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Kanye stood perfectly still, processing what had just happened. He was being refused service not because the car wasn't available, but because they didn't want him to have it. "So you're refusing to sell me a car because of things I've said?" "We reserve the right to select our clientele, Mr. West. Perhaps one of our other models would be more suitable." Richard gestured toward the main showroom area. Kanye felt a familiar heat rising in his chest, that burning combination of anger and humiliation that had fueled some of his greatest work and some of his worst moments. He fought to keep his voice steady. "You know I can buy your entire company, right?" Richard's smile tightened. "That may be so, Mr. West, but today you cannot buy this car." Just then the showroom doors opened. 3 people with cameras entered, immediately recognizing Kanye. The first camera flash went off before he could turn away. "Mr. West, over here, what brings you to Elite Motors?" "Kanye, are you buying a new car today?" Tony looked panicked. Richard's expression remained impassive. "I believe we're done here," Richard said quietly. "I'll have security escort you out if necessary." The paparazzi moved closer, sensing tension, their cameras clicking rapidly. Kanye stood rooted to the spot, caught between rage and disbelief. This wasn't just about a car anymore. This was public humiliation playing out in real time. "Mr. West is just leaving," Richard announced loudly. "We were unable to accommodate his request today." More flashes. More questions shouted from behind cameras. Kanye could already see the headlines forming. "Kanye rejected by luxury car dealer," or "West not exclusive enough for Elite Motors." With the cameras tracking his every move, Kanye had 2 choices. Create a scene that would feed the media machine for weeks, or walk away with whatever dignity he could salvage. Years ago, he might have chosen the former without hesitation. But something deeper kicked in. "Your loss," he said simply, turning toward the exit. The walk across the showroom floor felt endless. Every step echoed on the marble. Camera flashes continued behind him. A hushed murmur spread among the other customers. Phones came out recording. His humiliation was being documented in real time, ready to be shared with millions. Outside in the bright sunlight, his driver opened the door to his current luxury SUV. As Kanye slid into the cool leather interior, the first notification buzzed on his phone. Someone had already posted a video. The caption read, "Breaking: Kanye West kicked out of Elite Motors." By the time his driver pulled away from the curb, the post had thousands of views. By the time they reached the first stoplight, it had been shared by a major entertainment news account. His phone kept buzzing with messages from friends, team members, and business partners. "Don't respond to anything," he texted his publicist. "I need to think." Back at his compound, Kanye paced the length of his minimalist living room, replaying the scene in his mind. The showroom, the manager's thinly veiled contempt, the perfectly timed arrival of the paparazzi. It felt almost orchestrated. His assistant appeared in the doorway. "Your social accounts are blowing up. Elite Motors is trending. People are taking sides. Turn off all my notifications," Kanye replied, "and cancel my meetings for the rest of the week." When he was finally alone, Kanye stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Los Angeles. The city sprawled before him, a place that had both embraced and rejected him countless times. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, still the same person he'd always been, yet constantly redefined in the public eye. The rejection stung, not because he couldn't get the car, but because it represented something larger. Throughout his career, he'd fought to be taken seriously beyond music, in fashion, in design, in business. Every victory had been hard-won against skepticism and closed doors. This was just one more door closing, but the public nature of it made it different. As evening fell over Los Angeles, Kanye sat in his home studio, sketchpad in hand. He began drawing, not lyrics or clothing designs, but the sleek lines of a vehicle unlike anything currently on the road. If they wouldn't sell him their vision of luxury, perhaps it was time to create his own. He worked through the night, barely noticing as darkness gave way to dawn. Outside his compound, paparazzi gathered, hoping to catch him in a moment of weakness or anger. But inside, something unexpected was happening. The humiliation was transforming, crystallizing into a new vision. By morning, the incident at Elite Motors was the lead story on entertainment news. Social media buzzed with opinions. Business partners sent concerned messages about brand impact. But Kanye barely noticed. He was already somewhere else mentally, seeing possibilities beyond the rejection. He finally emerged from his studio as the sun climbed high in the sky. Dozens of sketches scattered around him, his eyes tired but clear. The humiliation hadn't broken him. Instead, it had planted the seed of something that would eventually shock the world. He just didn't know it yet. 3 days passed since the incident at Elite Motors, and Kanye hadn't left his compound. The media storm outside his gates grew with each passing hour. Entertainment shows played the video clip on repeat. Social media users dissected every second of the encounter, creating memes and hot takes that spread like wildfire. Inside, Kanye shut it all out. He instructed his staff to turn off all televisions in the house. His phone remained in a drawer, notifications silenced. He needed space to think, to process, to channel the humiliation into something productive. The sprawling studio in the west wing of his compound became his sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the hills, but heavy blackout curtains now blocked the view, creating a cocoon of creative isolation. Time seemed to lose meaning as day blended into night and back again. "You need to eat something," said Greg, his longtime personal assistant, placing a tray on the desk beside stacks of sketches. Kanye looked up, blinking as if coming out of a trance. Dozens of papers covered every surface. Rough sketches, technical drawings, notes scribbled in his distinctive handwriting. He'd barely slept, caught in the grip of creative fever that had always been both his gift and his curse. "What time is it?" Kanye asked, reaching for the water on the tray. "Almost 7 p.m. You've been in here for nearly 20 hours straight." Kanye rubbed his eyes. "What's happening out there?" Greg hesitated. "It's still pretty intense. The dealership released a statement saying they reserve the right to select appropriate clientele. Makes them look worse, honestly. Your fans are calling for boycotts. And the business side? 3 partners have requested emergency meetings. Stock in your fashion line dipped yesterday but recovered today. Your publicist has drafted 3 different statements for your approval. Kanye shook his head. No statements. Not yet. Greg glanced at the drawings covering the studio. What is all this? Something new. Kanye picked up one of the sketches. The sleek silhouette of a vehicle unlike anything currently on the market. Something they won't expect. Later that evening, after finally getting some rest, Kanye sat on the balcony of his bedroom, looking out over Los Angeles as the city lights blinked to life in the dusk. The humiliation at the dealership had triggered something unexpected, a period of intense reflection, not just about cars or luxury, but about his entire public persona. For years he'd lived in the spotlight, his every word and action scrutinized, celebrated, or condemned. He'd pushed boundaries in music, fashion, and business, always fighting to be taken seriously beyond the limitations others tried to place on him. Yet somehow he still found himself vulnerable to rejection and public embarrassment. His phone lay on the table beside him. Finally, he picked it up and scrolled through the hundreds of missed calls, text messages, and social media notifications. The incident had clearly struck a nerve with people. Some condemned the dealership for disrespecting an artist of his caliber. Others seemed almost gleeful at his public rejection, seeing it as comeuppance for past controversies. One message caught his attention. From Damon, an old friend who'd transitioned from music production to environmental technology. When you're ready to talk, I have something that might interest you. This could be the reset you're looking for. Intrigued, Kanye called him back immediately. I've been following what happened, Damon said when he picked up. Rough few days, I imagine. I've had worse, Kanye replied. What's this reset you mentioned? I'm working with a team developing new battery technology, sustainable energy solutions that could revolutionize transportation. The problem is the technology is solid but lacks vision, the kind of vision someone like you brings to the table. Kanye looked down at his sketches. I'm listening. The world doesn't need another luxury car company focused only on status. It needs something revolutionary that changes how we think about mobility, design, and environmental impact. Someone with your influence could shift the entire conversation. The idea took root immediately. What if this humiliation wasn't just another media cycle to weather? What if it was the push he needed toward something genuinely transformative? The next morning, Kanye called a meeting with his core team at the compound. His lawyer, business manager, creative director, and 3 trusted advisors gathered in the minimalist conference room overlooking the pool. I'm not responding to the car dealership incident directly, he announced. Instead, we're going to channel this energy into something bigger. His business manager looked concerned. The media cycle will move on eventually, but right now your silence is being interpreted as defeat. Let them think that, Kanye replied, spreading his sketches across the conference table. While they're focused on the drama, we'll be building the future. He outlined his vision, not just a car, but a completely new approach to luxury transportation. Sustainable, innovative, and with a design language that would make traditional luxury vehicles look outdated and wasteful. This is a major pivot, his lawyer cautioned. Your expertise is in music and fashion, not automotive design. My expertise is in changing culture, Kanye countered. Cars, clothes, music, they're all just different canvases. Not everyone was convinced, but Kanye had never let skepticism stop him before. By the end of the meeting, he had commitments from his team to explore the feasibility of the project while maintaining complete secrecy. That afternoon, he met with Damon and 2 engineers from his sustainability startup. For hours, they discussed technical possibilities, limitations, and innovations that could make Kanye's vision a reality. The battery technology exists, said one engineer, reviewing Kanye's sketches. But the design would need significant refinement to work with these systems. That's where I come in, Kanye replied. Give me the constraints and I'll work within them to create something beautiful. Over the following weeks, Kanye's compound transformed. One wing became dedicated to the new project. Engineers, designers, and sustainability experts began making regular visits, all required to sign stringent confidentiality agreements. Equipment and materials arrived in unmarked trucks. The media, still camped outside hoping for a reaction to the dealership incident, had no idea what was happening inside. Kanye threw himself into learning everything he could about automotive design, electric propulsion systems, and sustainable materials. He spent hours in video calls with experts across the globe, absorbing information with the same intensity he brought to creating albums. "You need to make some public appearance soon," his publicist advised during a rare meeting about his traditional business affairs. "People are starting to create theories about your absence." "Let them," Kanye said. "Sometimes disappearing is the most powerful statement." His withdrawal from public life only intensified speculation. Entertainment news segments debated whether the dealership rejection had broken his spirit or if he was planning some grand revenge. Social media users created elaborate theories about his next move. None came close to the truth. 6 weeks after the incident, Kanye finally ventured out of his compound. Not for a public appearance, but for a secret meeting at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Los Angeles. The space would become the testing ground for the prototype his team had begun developing. As he walked through the cavernous, empty building, Kanye felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. The humiliation that had initially felt like a setback had become the catalyst for something far more significant than buying another status symbol. "We can convert this entire section into a workshop," he said to the small team accompanying him. "The height of the ceiling is perfect for what we need." Standing in the empty space, Kanye could already visualize what it would become. Not just a workshop, but a statement about the future of luxury, sustainability, and his own evolution as a creative force. "They thought rejecting me was the end of something," he said quietly, almost to himself. "They had no idea it was just the beginning." As the sun set, casting long shadows through the warehouse's broken windows, Kanye looked at the rough renderings his team had created based on his initial sketches. The vehicle taking shape on paper was unlike anything on the road, a fusion of cutting-edge technology, environmental consciousness, and the distinctive aesthetic that had made his fashion line a global phenomenon. The path ahead would be challenging. The automotive industry was notoriously difficult for outsiders to penetrate, but as Kanye stood in the empty warehouse, he felt the same electric certainty that had guided his most successful reinventions in the past. The rejection had given him something priceless, a new mountain to climb, a new way to prove that his creative vision transcended categories and expectations. Next time, he thought, I won't be asking for a seat at their table. I'll be building my own. 3 months had passed since the incident at Elite Motors, and the abandoned warehouse had transformed beyond recognition. What was once an empty shell now hummed with activity. The concrete floor gleamed with fresh epoxy. Bright LED lights hung from the high ceiling. One entire wall had become a massive digital display, showing evolving designs and technical specifications. In the center of it all stood the beginnings of something revolutionary, the metal frame of a vehicle taking shape under the careful hands of a small team of engineers, designers, and fabricators. Each had been personally selected by Kanye not just for their technical skills, but for their belief in the vision. "The battery integration is still giving us problems," said Damon, pointing to a 3D rendering on his tablet. "We can achieve the range you want, but it affects the profile you've designed." Kanye studied the rendering, turning it in different angles. "The profile is non-negotiable. It's what makes this different from everything else on the market. Then we need a new approach to the battery. So find one." Kanye's tone was firm but not harsh. "That's why I brought you all together. I didn't want people who'd tell me what can't be done. I want people who'll figure out how to do the impossible." His phone buzzed with a notification. Another interview request, the 20th this week. The media narrative had shifted over the months. What began as stories of Kanye's humiliating rejection had evolved into speculation about his extended absence from public view. Some outlets suggested he'd had a breakdown. Others claimed he was plotting some spectacular revenge against the luxury car industry. None had come close to the truth. "You know, eventually you'll have to talk to someone," said Lily, his new publicist who had replaced his previous team after they pushed too hard for a public response to the incident. "The longer you stay silent, the more they'll speculate." "Let them speculate," Kanye replied, his focus still on the vehicle taking shape before him. "When the time comes, the work will speak for itself." Later that evening, as most of the team headed home, Kanye remained in the warehouse, sitting alone beside the prototype. The bare metal framework hardly resembled the sleek vehicle from his sketches, but he could see it clearly in his mind. The flowing lines, the distinctive silhouette, the details that would make it immediately recognizable as something new in the world. His phone rang. The name of his business manager flashed on the screen. "We need to talk about finances," his manager said when he answered. "This project is burning through cash at an alarming rate. I told you whatever it needs, it's not that simple. 3 of your major investors are getting nervous. They've been patient, but they're asking questions I can't answer because of your secrecy requirements." Kanye walked around the prototype, running his hand along the metal frame. "Tell them I'm calling a meeting tomorrow here at the warehouse." "All of them?" "Yes. It's time they saw what their money is building." The next afternoon, 5 men and 2 women in expensive suits stood awkwardly in the warehouse, looking out of place among the tools, machinery, and technical equipment. These were Kanye's primary investors, wealthy individuals who had backed his various ventures over the years, drawn by his track record of turning cultural influence into financial returns. "Thank you all for coming," Kanye said, standing beside the covered prototype. In the hours since their conversation, his team had worked through the night to create something presentable. Not the finished product, but enough to show the direction. "We've been patient, Kanye," said one investor, a tech entrepreneur who had backed several of his projects. "But patience has limits. Your fashion line needs attention. Your music fans are waiting. Meanwhile, you've disappeared to play with cars?" He gestured around the warehouse with barely concealed skepticism. "Not cars," Kanye corrected. "The future." With a nod to Damon, he pulled away the covering to reveal what they'd created. It wasn't yet a complete vehicle, but the basic structure was there. Sleek, low to the ground, with proportions unlike traditional cars. The unique silhouette immediately commanded attention. "What exactly are we looking at?" asked another investor. For the next hour, Kanye and his team walked the investors through their vision, not just for a vehicle, but for a new approach to transportation that combined cutting-edge technology with environmental consciousness and distinctive design. "The luxury market is stagnant," Kanye explained, showing renderings on the wall display. "They're selling the same status symbols they've been pushing for decades, just with bigger price tags. We're creating something fundamentally different, a vehicle that represents forward thinking, not just wealth." Some investors remained skeptical, asking pointed questions about manufacturing, regulatory hurdles, and the competitive landscape. Others began to show genuine interest, particularly when Damon demonstrated the proprietary battery technology they'd been developing. "This is bigger than a revenge project against some dealership that disrespected you," said the tech entrepreneur, his tone shifting from skepticism to cautious interest. "It always was," Kanye replied. "That moment was just the spark. The vision is much bigger." By the end of the presentation, the mood had shifted. Not all were fully convinced, but most could see the potential, not just as a business venture, but as a cultural statement that aligned perfectly with Kanye's brand. "We'll continue funding for another 6 months, the lead investor finally declared. "But we need regular updates and a clear timeline for prototype completion." As the investors filed out, Kanye felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The project would continue, but more importantly, he'd articulated the vision to others who didn't share his creative perspective, and they'd understood it. That night, as he drove back to his compound, he made an impulsive decision. Instead of taking his usual route, he directed his driver to Elite Motors, the scene of his humiliation months earlier. "Pull up across the street," he instructed. "I just want to look." From the safety of his tinted windows, Kanye watched as wealthy customers entered and exited the dealership. The same cars gleamed under the same lights. Nothing had changed, yet everything had changed for him. What once represented the pinnacle of status now seemed oddly outdated, symbols of an old definition of luxury that he was in the process of reimagining. His phone buzzed with a text from Damon. "Battery breakthrough. The team solved it. Profile stays intact." Kanye smiled, taking one last look at the dealership before instructing his driver to head home. They have no idea what's coming, he thought. Over the following weeks, progress accelerated. The prototype moved from bare framework to a functioning vehicle. The distinctive body took shape, crafted from sustainable materials that his team had developed specifically for the project. The proprietary battery system was integrated seamlessly, preserving the sleek profile while delivering unprecedented range. Challenges remained. The control systems needed refinement. The interior design was still evolving. Regulatory hurdles loomed on the horizon. But with each problem solved, Kanye's confidence grew. "We need to think about the reveal," Lily said during a strategy meeting 6 months after the project began. "When and how do we show this to the world?" "Not until it's perfect," Kanye insisted. "And not with a traditional press release or industry show." "Then what?" Kanye walked to the window overlooking the workshop floor, where his team continued refining the prototype. "Something unexpected. Something that merges all the worlds I work in. Music, fashion, design, and now transportation. Something that forces people to see luxury differently." The reveal began taking shape in his mind, not just a product launch, but a cultural moment that would redefine his public image and establish a new chapter in his career. The humiliation at the dealership, once so painful, now seemed almost necessary. The catalyst that had pushed him toward something far more significant than simply buying another status symbol. 1 year to the day after the incident at Elite Motors, the prototype was complete. It sat gleaming in the center of the warehouse, a vehicle that defied easy categorization. Not quite a car, not quite something else. Its flowing lines and distinctive silhouette immediately set it apart from anything else on the road. Kanye circled it slowly, taking in every detail. The team stood back, watching anxiously for his reaction. They had poured countless hours into making his vision a reality, often working through seemingly impossible challenges. "It's ready," he said finally. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, followed by spontaneous applause. For many on the team, this project had become more than just a job. It was a mission to prove that luxury could be redefined, that sustainability and cutting-edge design could coexist. Later that evening, after the celebration had wound down, Kanye sat alone in the quiet warehouse looking at what they'd created. His phone contained dozens of messages about his other businesses, his music, his fashion line, all the worlds he'd temporarily set aside to focus on this new vision. It was time to bring everything together. Time to show the world that the humiliation he'd experienced wasn't the end of something, but the beginning of a new chapter that would shock everyone, especially those who thought they'd seen the limits of what he could achieve. He picked up his phone and made a call. "It's time," he said simply. "Start putting the plan in motion. The reveal happens in 30 days. The next morning, cryptic posts appeared simultaneously across all his social media accounts. A simple silhouette against a black background, with a date. No explanation, no context. Just an image and a promise of something to come. Within hours, the posts had gone viral. The speculation began anew, more intense than ever before. What had Kanye West been creating during his year away from the public eye? And how would it change everything? Again? The mysterious silhouette Kanye had posted online sparked a frenzy of speculation. Entertainment news shows devoted entire segments to analyzing what it might represent. Tech blogs published detailed theories about the shape, with some correctly guessing it was some kind of vehicle. Fashion publications wondered if it signaled a new direction for his clothing line. Music fans debated whether it was album artwork for a surprise release. No one had the full picture. And that was exactly what Kanye wanted. In the final weeks before the reveal, the warehouse transformed once again. Construction crews worked around the clock, guided by Kanye's specific vision. Walls came down. New structures went up. The space evolved into something between an art gallery, a concert venue, and a high-tech showroom. "The invitations are ready for approval," said Lily, showing him the design on her tablet. A physical card made from the same sustainable materials as parts of the vehicle, embedded with a small digital display that showed the same mysterious silhouette from his social media post. "We need the final guest list. Keep it small," Kanye instructed. 200 people max. Industry leaders, influential voices, select media. No one gets +1s. Everyone signs NDAs at the door. "The dealership?" Lily asked cautiously. Kanye smiled. "Send one invitation to Richard Harrington personally. Not the dealership, just him." The morning of the reveal, Kanye stood alone in the center of the transformed warehouse. In a few hours it would fill with guests, but for now it was eerily quiet. The vehicle, now completed and polished to perfection, waited under a custom cover in the center of the main space. Surrounding it, interactive displays stood ready to showcase its features and the technology behind it. The lighting had been meticulously designed to highlight every curve and detail once revealed. He felt a strange calm. For a year, he had channeled his energy into this project, driven initially by humiliation, but eventually by something deeper. The desire to create something truly revolutionary that merged all his passions and challenged conventions. His phone buzzed. A text from Damon. "Nervous?" "Focused," Kanye texted back. As evening approached, the team gathered for final preparations. Sound engineers tested the audio system. Lighting technicians made last adjustments. The catering staff arranged minimal, artful refreshments that complemented the aesthetic of the event. Security positioned themselves at every entrance armed with strict instructions and guest lists. 10 minutes until doors open, Lily announced, checking her watch. "The line outside is already around the block." Kanye nodded, retreating to a small room they'd set up as his private space. He changed into an outfit designed specifically for tonight, pieces from his upcoming collection that complemented the vehicle's aesthetic. The materials, colors, and silhouette all spoke the same design language as what waited under the cover in the main space. At precisely 8 p.m., the doors opened. Guests filed in, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. Industry titans mingled with cultural influencers. Tech innovators chatted with fashion designers. Carefully selected journalists scanned the space, looking for clues about what was to come. From his vantage point behind a one-way glass panel, Kanye watched the crowd gather. He spotted familiar faces, competitors, collaborators, critics, all drawn by the mystery he'd created. And then, near the entrance, he saw him, Richard Harrington from Elite Motors, looking slightly uncomfortable as he signed the NDA and checked his phone. Perfect, Kanye thought. Everyone who needs to be here is here. At 8:30 p.m., the lights dimmed. A low-pulsing beat began to play through the state-of-the-art sound system, a new composition Kanye had created specifically for this moment. The crowd quieted, turning toward the center of the space where the covered vehicle sat on a slowly rotating platform. Kanye stepped out from behind the scenes, walking confidently to the center of the room. He wore no microphone. The acoustics of the space had been designed so his voice would carry naturally to every corner. "Thank you all for coming," he began simply. The room fell completely silent. This was his first public appearance in over a year, and every person present knew they were witnessing something significant. "A year ago, I experienced something that many of you heard about." His eyes found Richard Harrington in the crowd. "I was refused service at a luxury car dealership, not because they didn't have what I wanted to buy, but because they decided I didn't represent their brand values." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some glanced at Harrington, who shifted uncomfortably. "At first, I felt what anyone would feel: anger, humiliation, the desire to strike back," Kanye continued. "But then I started thinking about what luxury really means in today's world. Is it exclusive access to products most people can't have? Is it association with traditional symbols of wealth? Or is it something more meaningful? Innovation, vision, and responsibility to the future?" He moved toward the covered vehicle, placing his hand on the edge of the cover. "Tonight isn't about revenge. It's about reimagining what's possible when we challenge conventions and refuse to accept limitations, including the limitations others try to place on us." With a single, fluid motion, he pulled away the cover. Gasps filled the room. Camera flashes erupted. The vehicle, now revealed, defied easy categorization. Lower and more fluid than conventional cars, its lines seemed to flow like liquid metal. The exterior gleamed with a finish that shifted subtly as the platform rotated, revealing different dimensions from every angle. No visible seams disrupted its organic form. No traditional elements, grills, exposed headlights, conventional doors, interrupted its revolutionary design language. "This is Aurora," Kanye announced. "Not just a vehicle, but a new vision of mobility that merges transportation, environmental responsibility, and artistic expression." For the next 20 minutes, he guided the audience through Aurora's features: the proprietary battery technology that delivered unprecedented range, the sustainable materials developed specifically for this project, the intuitive control systems that responded to touch and voice, the modular interior that could transform for different experiences. "Aurora isn't powered by fossil fuels," he explained. "It runs on 3 renewable energy sources working in harmony: solar, kinetic, and a proprietary hydrogen system that produces zero emissions. Technical displays around the room lit up, showing detailed information about each innovation. Members of his team stood ready beside each station, prepared to answer the technical questions that would inevitably follow. But Aurora isn't just about transportation, Kanye continued. It's about rethinking our relationship with luxury. True luxury isn't about exclusion, it's about vision. Not about status, but about progress. The music shifted, becoming more layered and complex. The lighting adjusted, highlighting different aspects of the vehicle as Kanye moved around it. Every element of Aurora has been designed with both purpose and beauty in mind. Nothing is here just for show. Nothing exists without function. That's real luxury, where form and function become indistinguishable. As he spoke, the crowd moved closer, drawn to the vehicle like a magnet. Tech executives examined the control systems with undisguised interest. Fashion designers studied the materials and finishes. Automotive journalists circled the platform, trying to understand how the mechanics worked within such a revolutionary form. Richard Harrington stood at the edge of the crowd, his expression unreadable after the presentation. The formal part of the evening gave way to a more interactive experience. Guests could approach Aurora, ask questions of the technical team, and explore the displays showing the journey from concept to reality. The warehouse became a buzzing hive of excited conversations and hushed expressions of awe. Kanye moved through the crowd, engaging with guests, answering questions, accepting congratulations. Every few minutes his team updated him on the online reaction. Clips from the reveal were already going viral, shared by the select journalists and influencers who had been permitted to post live updates. Near the end of the evening, he found himself face to face with Richard Harrington, who had lingered despite his obvious discomfort. "Quite an achievement," Harrington said stiffly. "Though of course it's not really in the same category as what we offer at Elite Motors." Kanye smiled. "You're right. It's not in the same category. It's created an entirely new one. I assume this is your way of making a point about our previous interaction." "Actually, I should thank you," Kanye replied. "If you had sold me that car, Aurora might never have existed. Sometimes rejection is the best gift someone can give you." Before Harrington could respond, Lily appeared at Kanye's side. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something you need to see," she said urgently, showing him her tablet. On the screen was a notification from one of the world's largest investment firms, known for backing revolutionary technologies. The message was simple: "We need to talk tomorrow. Name your price." Below it was another notification, a similar message from a competing firm. And another. "They're all reaching out," Lily whispered. "Not just investors, manufacturing partners, technology companies. Everyone wants in." As the night wound down and the last guest departed, Kanye stood alone once more in the center of the space. Aurora gleamed under the lights, no longer just a response to humiliation but the beginning of something much bigger than he had initially imagined. His phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline read, "Kanye West unveils revolutionary vehicle concept, shares in Elite Motors drop 12% in after-hours trading." He smiled, putting the phone away. The revenge narrative would dominate the early coverage, but he knew the story would evolve as people understood what Aurora truly represented. Not just a comeback, but a complete reimagining of what luxury could be. Outside, the city lights glittered against the night sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, finding manufacturing partners, navigating regulations, scaling the technology. But tonight, standing beside the physical manifestation of his vision, Kanye felt something he hadn't expected. Not satisfaction at proving his critics wrong, but excitement about the road. Ahead, the rejection that had once seemed so humiliating had become nothing, more than a footnote in a much larger story. One that was just beginning to unfold. The morning after the reveal, Kanye woke to a world that had dramatically shifted. His phone buzzed constantly with notifications, news alerts, interview requests, congratulatory messages, and partnership offers. Aurora had dominated overnight headlines, trending across every platform and sparking conversations far beyond the automotive or entertainment worlds. "The reaction is unlike anything I've ever seen," Lily said during their morning briefing at the warehouse, scrolling through analytics on her tablet. "It's crossing industries and demographics. Technology publications are analyzing the battery system. Environmental groups are celebrating the zero-emission approach. Fashion and design magazines are running features on the aesthetic revolution. Even financial news is covering the market impact. The warehouse had transformed yet again, now functioning as a temporary headquarters for what was rapidly becoming a full-fledged company. Team members moved purposefully between workstations, fielding inquiries and organizing the next phases of the project. Elite Motors stock dropped another 8% when markets opened, one of the business analysts reported. Their PR team released a statement trying to distance themselves from Richard Harrington's decision last year. Kanye nodded but showed little interest in that particular detail. What about the partnership offers? Any worth pursuing? Several, his chief strategist replied. We've narrowed it down to 3 that align with your vision while providing the manufacturing capability we need. Rather than an established luxury car manufacturer, the most promising option was NewSpark, a relatively young electric vehicle startup with innovative production methods and a founder whose vision aligned with Kanye's approach to challenging industry norms. They're smaller, but more nimble, the strategist explained. They're willing to adapt their production lines specifically for Aurora, rather than forcing us into existing frameworks. And they're offering creative partnership terms that would give you unprecedented control over the final product. By mid-afternoon, Kanye sat across from Tyler Chen, NewSpark's founder, in the warehouse's newly established conference room. Aurora gleamed on its platform visible through the glass wall, a constant reminder of what they were discussing. What you've created isn't just a vehicle, Tyler said, studying the technical specifications spread across the table. It's a new paradigm. We've been pushing boundaries in manufacturing, but you've reimagined the product itself. Together, we could change everything. The conversation flowed easily between them, 2 visionaries who understood the power of challenging conventions. By evening, they had outlined the framework for a partnership that would bring Aurora from concept to reality, maintaining the integrity of Kanye's vision while leveraging NewSpark's production expertise. We should be able to begin limited production within 18 months, Tyler said as they shook hands on the preliminary agreement. And I believe we can scale faster than traditional manufacturers because we're not weighed down by legacy systems. As word of the partnership spread, other industries began reaching out. Renewable energy companies wanted to explore applications of Aurora's proprietary battery technology. Sustainable material developers sought collaboration on the innovative fabrics and composites developed for the vehicle's interior and exterior. This is evolving beyond transportation, Damon observed during a strategy session 3 weeks after the reveal. We're looking at a platform that could influence multiple industries. Kanye nodded, thoughtful. That was always the goal, not just to create an alternative to existing luxury vehicles, but to rethink what luxury means across the board. The expansion beyond automotive wasn't without challenges. Patent applications became a complex web of legal work. Regulatory hurdles required creative navigation. Scaling production while maintaining quality standards demanded constant innovation. Yet through it all, Kanye maintained the clarity of vision that had driven the project from the beginning. Each decision was filtered through the core principles: environmental responsibility, innovative design, and redefined luxury. 6 months after the reveal, Aurora's prototype embarked on a global tour, appearing at select technology conferences, sustainability summits, and design exhibitions. In each location, it drew unprecedented crowds and sparked conversations about the future of transportation and luxury. We've received over 50,000 pre-orders, reported the head of marketing during a quarterly review, without any traditional advertising, just the organic buzz and controlled appearances. Among those pre-orders was a surprising name: Richard Harrington, the very man who had rejected Kanye at Elite Motors. When Kanye spotted the name on the list, he smiled but said nothing. The rejection that had once stung so deeply now seemed almost comically insignificant compared to what it had ultimately inspired. 1 year after the reveal, almost 2 years since the incident at the dealership, Kanye stood on stage at NewSpark's newly completed production facility. Behind him, the first production-ready Aurora vehicles waited to be unveiled to the select audience of early investors, environmental advocates, technology partners, and media representatives. When we began this journey, Many questioned whether Aurora could make the leap from concept to reality, Kanye said, addressing the audience. Some said the battery technology was too ambitious. Others claimed the design couldn't be manufactured at scale. Many wondered if the market was ready for such a fundamental reimagining of what a vehicle could be. He paused, looking out at the faces watching him intently. Those doubts were reasonable. Innovation always faces skepticism, but what we've learned through this process is that when vision meets persistence, the impossible becomes possible. With that, he gestured toward the vehicles behind him, and the covers were removed simultaneously. 5 production-ready Auroras gleamed under the lights, each one a perfect embodiment of the original vision, but refined through countless iterations. Today marks the beginning of production, but it's really about much more than vehicles rolling off an assembly line, Kanye continued. It's about proving that sustainability and luxury can coexist, that artistic expression and technical innovation can reinforce each other. That rejection can be the beginning of revolution. The impact extended far beyond the automotive industry. Aurora's approach to sustainable luxury began influencing other sectors. Fashion brands started incorporating similar materials and design philosophies. Architecture firms explored applications of Aurora's energy systems in building design. The ripple effects touched industries that seemed far removed from transportation. Perhaps most surprisingly, established luxury car manufacturers, including Elite Motors, began shifting their approaches. New concept cars featured more sustainable materials. Design language evolved away from traditional status symbols toward more innovative expressions. Battery technology research accelerated across the board. They're following our lead, Damon observed as they reviewed industry publications showcasing these changes. 2 years ago, they wouldn't even sell you a car. Now they're trying to catch up to your vision. Kanye nodded, satisfied but not surprised. That's how change happens. First they reject you, then they imitate you. Eventually, they act like it was their idea all along. 3 years after the incident at the dealership, Kanye sat for a rare in-depth interview with a leading business publication. The conversation took place inside an Aurora, as it quietly cruised along the California coastline. The vehicle's autonomous driving system navigating while Kanye and the journalist talked. Looking back, "Do you see the rejection at Elite Motors as a blessing in disguise?" the journalist asked. Kanye gazed out at the ocean for a moment before answering. "I don't believe in accidents." That moment was exactly what needed to happen. If they had sold me that car, I would have driven it for a while, eventually gotten bored and moved on to the next status symbol. Instead, it forced me to question the entire system of luxury and status. And Aurora was the answer to that question? Aurora was the beginning of the answer, Kanye corrected. The full answer is what's happening now. This shift in how we think about luxury, sustainability, and innovation across industries. It's bigger than one vehicle or one company. It's about redefining value in a world that desperately needs new definitions. As the interview concluded and the Aurora glided back toward the city, Kanye reflected on the journey, from humiliation to innovation, from rejection to revolution. What had begun as a personal slight had evolved into something that was changing multiple industries and influencing how people thought about luxury, status, and environmental responsibility. That evening, Kanye attended the opening of a technology and design museum exhibition titled Reimagining Luxury, the Aurora Effect. The exhibition traced Aurora's development from concept to production and explored its influence across industries. In the center of the main gallery, displayed like a sculpture, was the original prototype, the very vehicle revealed that night 2 years earlier. As he moved through the crowded exhibition, overhearing conversations about design philosophy, sustainability practices, and innovative approaches to luxury, Kanye felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The humiliation that had once seemed so important had become merely the opening chapter of a much larger story, one that continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Near the exit, a small display caught his attention. It showed a timeline of Aurora's development, beginning with a simple entry. Kanye West experiences rejection at Elite Motors luxury car dealership. Below it was a quote attributed to him. "Sometimes rejection is the greatest gift someone can give you." He smiled, recognizing his own words from the night of the